Viewer discretion advised. The following video addresses a case of sexual brokenness that may be difficult for some audiences. So we've got a very vulnerable question here from one of our local supporters. I'm going to sum it up because it's quite long. But this individual was attracted to BDSM, and when he got married, he tried to encourage his wife to engage in some of this quote-unquote play.
Mercy.
It drove a wedge in their marriage. He begged her to try to get involved in some of this stuff.
Mercy.
When this happened, when she became sort of upset with him, when this wedge was driven into the marriage, he fell into porn addiction and writing erotica. This made a deeper wound.
Yes.
This went on for a few years. He said he had a reversion and began working on repairing the damage that he felt, and they began to grow closer. He's been doing much better with pornography. He stopped writing. He's gotten away from the quote-unquote kink community, but those desires are still there. First of all, thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there are many people who struggle with this just in the dark, and they feel so shamed and shameful, they never even bring it out into the light. So the very fact that he's bringing this into the light is the beginning of a deeper healing. And he's already on the road. As there's real grace at work here.
Yeah, let me finish his question. He says,
I thought you had.
How do I know if those desires are sinful or not? The desires are not outside the teachings outlined in the Catechism or the Bible, and I personally feel like they would bring me closer to my wife, but I'm afraid that my reasoning is flawed because the draw of it is so strong that I can logically justify it if I want. What's a good way to delve into this?
Yes.
So I guess we have to talk about two things. We have to talk about things that are within the realm of sexual morality, hey?
Yeah. I want to show a certain reverence here for a deep wound in this man's life. That's where we must begin. Just a reverence for the suffering. And a caveat, I am not a psychologist. I'm a theologian. And this man is going to need some, if he's really going to heal, he's going to need some deep psychological help, some deep therapy. So a counselor who, preferably a Catholic one, who knows about inner healing, because...
I'd point you to Bob Schutz's book, Be Restored.
Oh yes, Be Restored, absolutely.
Bob Schutz, Be Restored. Please
Be Restored.
Get that book.
Absolutely. Bob Schutz, friend of yours and mine, does excellent work here. And another organization called Desert Stream Ministries, they offer a course at the Theology of the Body Institute called Sexual Integration and Redemption. And you can look up on our website to get more info on that. But our sexual desires, even our most disordered ones, and there's no doubt when violence is involved, we have something tragically disordered. Nonetheless, those disordered sexual desires are a window into what's going on in my soul. And oftentimes, those who go for violence in sexual activity are reliving, in some ways, recycling traumas of their lives. I don't want to even venture in more than that because I'm not qualified. It's not my...
Not only are you not qualified, but you don't know this man and he hasn't given you enough to speak specifically.
But I think one can say these things don't come out of nowhere. These desires, they are not natural. They are not God-given. This is not God's intention for human sexuality. To try to wedge it in there in some kind of legalistic, well, it's not outside the bounds of what the Catechism says. This is a justification because he thinks, if I don't want to let go of this because this is a medication for a deep pain in my life, and he thinks it's the only medication that will reach that pain. It is not. The good news is there is real medication that can reach that real pain, but it's going to be really painful. It's going to be taking up the journey that you and I were talking about earlier in this program, where for the joy set before us, we're willing to look, not just put a pious mask over things, not just try to justify the things that I want because it's not technically not in the Catechism, or it's, I can justify it. No. We have to be willing to get utterly naked before God. And this man is already taking some steps there. I'm exposing it. Bring it to the light.
Yeah.
But someone far more qualified than I can help this man go on a journey that he needs to go on to face stuff in his soul and in his history from which I believe this stuff comes. And it's going to be dark and it's going to be difficult and it's going to be painful, but the light is going to shine. And this is why Christ came into the world. Redemption is real.
Well, let me kind of ask a follow-up question. What do you say to him or another man who, I'm not referring to BDSM at this point, but who might be with a wife who is, to use the word, sexually frigid and is unwilling to engage in legitimate sexual behaviors, maybe because she finds them objectifying, dehumanizing.
Yes.
Now, she might be wrong in her assessment of why the man wishes to engage in this way.
And she might be right.
She might be right.
Right.
But then you have the man who's frustrated, like how talk to that.
John Paul II, in Love and Responsibility, talks about the need for a culture of marital relations. And by that, he says the world of the man is a different world than the world of the woman. And the world of the woman is a different world than the world of the man. And this makes establishing harmony in the marriage bed a real challenge. Every married couple can attest to this challenge. And what is needed, he says, the key to marital harmony is tenderness in approaching the otherness of the other's world. Where I say, okay, my wife is different than I am. There's another world over there that is not my world and I don't understand it, but I'm going to trust that it's meant to enrich me. My world is different from her world, and I'm going to open it up to her, trusting that this could enrich her. Now, it doesn't mean everything that's in my world as a man is going to be wonderful and beautiful, because I'm a broken man. And I might be seeking to justify all kinds of things sexually or that are actually degrading to my spouse. So we can't just say, well, it's in my world, you have to respect it. No, we have to submit our world, our inner world, our desires, also to the truth of God's plan for sexual desire. And the blueprint for that is in the beginning, right? In the beginning, they were naked and felt no shame. Why were they naked and not feeling any shame? Because they experienced sexual desire as God created it to be, which is the desire to be a true gift to the other. Right? JP2 says the key here to harmony in that tenderness of entering the other's world and trusting that at the depth of that other's world, behind whatever might be broken or sinful or disordered, there's also a treasure. And I want to go on a journey to find that treasure and honor that treasure. And he says the key here is to recognize that the other is more important than I am. Not that I'm not important, because the other will also be saying the same of the other. It's like, that analogy of heaven as the long forks, where you can't get the fork to feed yourself, but the person across from you can feed you.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. If both people are doing that, trusting that there's a world over here that I need to learn and discover, and it's going to challenge me.
Thinking of Paul's words of mutual submission for the sake of Christ.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's the proper sense of what that is. Mutual submission out of reverence for the mystery of Christ and the church that is revealed in you and that is revealed in me as a man, as a woman. Finding that, going on that journey, and I like to say, like a man's inner world is like a deep cave, and the woman who goes on that journey has to be a spelunker, a cave explorer, right? But he also has to open that freely. She can't go poking around in there if he doesn't open it to her, because that would be a violation. And her inner world is like a deep ocean, and his mission is to go deep sea diving into that world. But he can't go swimming into her depths unless she opens them freely, or that would be a violation. So what is needed here is trust, vulnerability, tenderness.
I'm no psychologist, and so maybe I'm wrong here, but I think I'm right. That I would imagine that a woman's, I know a man could be possibly frigid, I guess, but a woman's frigidity, like the one that is like, no, this needs to be healed. This is not good.
Yes, it's not good.
That you viewing sex and sexual relationships with your husband in this way. But I imagine that begins to heal as the woman begins to trust.
Yes.
The woman has the woman can legitimately trust if the man shows himself trustworthy.
Yes.
And I imagine as she allows him into that deep ocean, to use your analogy, in the sort of psychological way, then bodily there'll be an openness there that wasn't there prior.
Yeah, you're in your own words, you're saying exactly what JP2 says in Love and Responsibility. He says, frigidity in a woman may sometimes be her own issues that she brings to the table, but it may also be, and maybe even often is, the result of a certain lack of tenderness on the man that he calls brutality.
Yeah.
And there are different grades of brutality. I mean, a man can be brutal with a woman in a really brutal way, but even like there's an emotional brutality, you might say, where you just dismiss that other world, and you're really demanding that she be more and more like you. I know I've done that to my wife, because wouldn't that be easier if my wife just thought like me and I didn't have to go on that pilgrimage into her world? And I remember one situation in our marriage where there was lack of harmony and something we were dealing with, and I kind of was like angry about it. Like, why does she just think more like me? And I realized, well, that would make her a man. And there's something homosexual about it, and I can when I'm in those places of like angry at the difference of man and woman, I can begin to say, yeah, I mean, I think I get something of why men might prefer a man, because there's no other world. Yeah. It's just my world, and you have pretty much the same world, and we can selfishly feed off each other. But I need the otherness of that world for my masculinity to flourish, to become what it is. Otherwise, I'm going to be, what we were talking, what's that name for those isolated?
Oh, hikikomori.
Those people. The isolation of sameness, otherness, that other world, that deep ocean calls me out of my cave. And there are treasures in that ocean that I am called to discover in my wife that she doesn't even know about. Yeah. And there are treasures buried in my cave that she's called to discover.
Joy.
If we are willing to go on that vulnerable journey of exposing our hearts.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. Before you go, do us a favor, leave a comment, let us know what you thought of the video, like, and subscribe.